Welcome in to the episode of Chiefs Focus Live. We got a busy show. We're going to talk Chris Jones. We're going to talk L'Jarius Sneed. We're going to talk what wide receivers left Kansas City might be able to sign. And we'll finish off the show with a couple of draft crushes. My name is Quentin Morse. We got Thiz running the show in the background. And now a guy who is ready to give a running back a 7-digit salary is the old man himself, JP. How are we doing today on this lovely Tuesday? Well, it's a little stormy here in Kansas City. The lightning's going crazy. It's not raining yet, but lightning's going crazy.
We got nothing. It's sunny. It's 70 degrees. It's a nice day. So I'm doing good. What a week. What a weekend.
Yeah, this is the way free agency is, right? The league here doesn't start till tomorrow, Wednesday, but the legal tampering period has opened up already. Guys are getting signed to massive deals all across the NFL. But one guy who didn't have to worry about any of that, one defensive tackle with your Kansas City Chiefs, Chris Jones, signed a massive deal.
Biggest deal ever.
Let's how do you want to break this down? Let's just focus on what it is first. There is a little confusion out there, so let's just talk about the contract first, and then let's talk about our views on it. Okay, I think that's
the contract isn't that difficult. I mean,
technically it's a 5-year deal, but in reality it's a 3-year deal. The way that the deal is structured, he has no guarantee in the 2027 and 2028 year. So his first 2 years are already guaranteed. The 2026 year gets guaranteed after the new league year in 2025. So that's the part that we really need to focus on. After that, he is cuttable, and Kansas City can really move on from him.
Yeah, if they will, but I don't think they're going to. He flat out said he's going to retire in Kansas City. So
that's a conversation that we need to, we can have in 2 years.
I don't think he's going to leave.
Right.
But regardless, it doesn't matter. By the way, I don't know if you knew, but I was absolutely right that he was going to sign Saturday. But you thought he was going to go into free agency.
Honestly, I did. I thought that he was going to. I mean, he waited so long.
Oh,
yeah, JP was right.
There it is. There it is.
I'm happy. I'm so happy that he signed here. Like, don't get me wrong. I am so happy that he signed here. I think it's great. I think that the money, it's a lot, but look, this is your best defensive player. This is a guy that has been a part of all your Super Bowls of this team. He's been a part of the dynasty. This is a guy that if Chris Jones wasn't here, I don't know what you were going to do on the defensive line. This is huge. Kansas City was able to sign the biggest free agent on the market. That's what Kansas City was able to do. Chris Jones was the biggest name. He was the most impactful player. It was a great opportunity for Kansas City to maintain him on the roster. I'm so happy. I really am.
Yeah, I am too. Look, I knew that he was going to sign. I mean, there was a lot of conjecture and a lot of stories that he was, he loves to jack with fans.
He really does.
I mean, he put out there, somebody said, where are you going to go if you don't stay in Kansas City? He said the Raiders. Everybody knows he was never going to go to the Raiders. That was not even a question. He knew where he was going. Veach has been working on this for a year. This was something, and I don't think people realize this, but when he was in his holdout last year, Veach said, look, give me until the 2024 season. We'll get you signed to a long-term contract. That's why he came back as quick as he did. And he played on the tag. He got what he wanted. He's going to retire a Chief. It is what it is. So, I mean, I'm happy with the contract. He's happy with the contract. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy he stayed home. He belongs in Kansas City. He's got roots here. So it is what it is. I'm glad he's where he's at.
Look, and very rarely in today's, not just NFL world, but in sports in general, do you see a player, even a superstar player, play their career at one spot, right? We've seen a ton of great players, franchise-level players like Saquon Barkley, right? We saw that the Giants didn't re-sign him. He signed with the Eagles. So very rarely do we see superstar or great players across all sports play with one franchise their entire career.
Not anymore.
This contract, well, it doesn't guarantee anything. It makes it pretty close to a fully guarantee that Chris Jones will spend his entire career.
Absolutely.
Like I said, the Chiefs have an out after the 2026 year. It would be only $12 million in dead cap space. So if
wait a minute, hold on. If that's the out, which it is, that's pretty much he's going to retire cheap because Veach will not have 12 million in dead cap. He refuses to have that. The most he's ever had is $7 million, and
Well,
that made him cry in a corner. Veach doesn't like to lose money.
no, but if something happens, Kansas City does have an opportunity. They do have an out.
Yeah,
Um,
but his injury guarantees are huge. Um,
yeah, I mean
Go
the
ahead.
good thing for Kansas City is that this year his cap hit is just a little over $7.3 million.
Yeah.
So this contract doesn't really limit anything you're doing this year. The next couple of years is when it really jumps up. It's 34.8 in 2025. It's 41.1 in 2026. So this is going to you're going to miss out on free agents or other moves because of the Chris Jones contract. That's the way that it is. This is a big contract.
Well, not
Let me
really.
ask you this, JP.
Mm-hmm.
What does Chris Jones have to do to live up to this contract?
He's got to just maintain what he's been doing. I mean, for the last 4 years, he's been either number one or number two in the league. He just has to continue to do what he's been doing. Between pressures and sacks, you can't get any better than him. You really can't. Aaron Donald's declined. Chris Jones has not. So he just continues to do what he's doing, and everything will be fine. He doesn't really have to do much more than what he's done. I mean, even when he was under contract the first time, he played better than pretty much anybody. So he didn't really have to change anything that he's doing. He really doesn't. I want to check something real quick. Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
I agree with you for the most part. Chris Jones really has been underpaid for the last couple of years in terms of what he's been able to put out. I think that if he averages 12 sacks a year for the next 3 years, I think that you can get really the most out of it because as a defensive tackle, the value you get out of him is not purely from sack numbers. It's also from the pressure rate. I think you can make the argument that Chris Jones was the best player on the field for the
Yeah.
last Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He made a lot of impactful plays, even though it will never be on the stat sheet, at least
Well,
your
here's the
normal
thing.
stat sheet.
Mahomes restructured his contract. It's going to restructure now. It's going to free up about $21 million in cap space for this year. So, with that being done, we have the opportunity, and I'm kind of answering a question real quick, but as far as Chris Jones's contract concerned for this year, it frees up a lot of money. He restructured $21 million. So it's going to help a lot. That, to me, is something that screams I'm bringing in a wide receiver and I'm going to try and re-sign Sneed. That's just what it screams to me. So
Let's talk about L'Jarius Sneed. As everybody knows, he's on the franchise tag. Look, this is a guy that I've been. I think that Kansas City should go and move on. Get your draft assets out of him. I think that Kansas City should treat its cornerback room like the Rays have treated their starting pitchers, where you get the value out of them, you trust your system, you trust your development, and you move on from guys to get assets so you can continue to improve the roster around, on those areas that maybe are not as good, or you're able to bring in other assets by moving up in the draft and getting premium positions like pass rush and wide receiver. Now, unfortunately for Kansas City, the Lions did trade for a quarterback yesterday. So the Lions are obviously out of the market for trading for L'Jarius Sneed. I do think teams like the Falcons, the Eagles, the Commanders, they should still be interested in talking to Kansas City. There are teams with premium draft assets that I think Kansas City should be able to move up for. I do want draft picks for him. I do want at least a second. A second and a fifth is probably the best that realistically that you can get. If Kansas City is able to get something better than that, I'll be happy. But I do want draft assets because Kansas City does need to rebuild other parts of their defense. They need to get more defensive linemen. They probably need to go out and get another linebacker. And if you're trading Sneed, you need to spend a back of the draft pick to look at another corner.
I agree to an extent. I guess the difference is that right now there's not a lot of teams left to trade with. You're not going to trade with somebody within your conference. You really don't want to trade to a team that's in the AFC. You don't want to give any contender a weapon like that. So you have to really be careful who you trade with. So and a lot of these teams have gone out and signed people. It just keeps dwindling. From Saturday on, every team that you and everybody else assumed was going to go after him has signed someone. So it's just something that I think Veach was waiting to see what would happen. I know he kind of played it the right way. His priority was to get Chris Jones done. He did that. Then he moved on to other things, which I think one of them is Sneed. You wait, you see what the offers are. If he wants to go to those teams, because Sneed's going to be as methodical as he can be within the money range that he wants to be in, and then you make a decision. He's played it fairly well. Sneed doesn't want to leave, but he wants to be paid.
And he deserves to be paid.
He
right?
does.
This is a
He
guy
absolutely
that,
does.
This is a guy that has been paid just about $5 million over his entire career.
Correct.
Right, and has done everything right. He's come in here. He was a no-name guy. This is a guy that has worked on his craft. He started out as just a slot guy. He has turned into a true number one corner, a guy that has gone up against every great wide receiver in the league and has proven that he's capable of doing it. I think the benefit here for Kansas City, one of the good things here for Kansas City, is that there aren't a lot of corners on the market, a lot of good cornerbacks, especially young cornerbacks on the market. So I think his value is still out there. There are still teams that are in dire need of a true number one corner.
As long as they have the money to pay him, yeah.
Right. There are teams looking to rebuild their defenses, and there are teams looking for leadership qualities. Sneed, I think, is still going to be a high asset. The reason, just because he hasn't been traded yet, doesn't limit my pros thinking here that he's not going to get traded.
Oh,
I think there are
there's
teams
a very
waiting
good
for
chance
free
that he will.
agency to run through that first wave, and at some point we're going to see Sneed get traded away, and Kansas City's going to get a couple of draft picks, and they're going to be able to either use those draft picks to trade up, or Kansas City is going to be able to use those to draft guys at that position wherever they are in the draft. Because pick number 43 with the Falcons, you can get a quality player in the second round.
Another thing you can look at it from this standpoint. If for some reason Veach does want to keep Sneed around for the year, he can now. If he didn't want to do another thing within free agency right now, he could keep Sneed and keep him on the tag and probably still sign a wide receiver if he wanted to do that. I don't know if he's going to. I'm just saying that's an option for him as well. I agree. If it's going to happen, it's going to be closer to the draft. Like Thiz said, it's going to be closer to the draft. We'll just have to see what happens. I know there's been teams out there that have been very interested. The Eagles, the Lions, Minnesota. A couple of AFC teams have been somewhat interested. They're getting shot down, but they're interested. We'll just have to see how it plays out. Willie Gay did sign a 1-year deal today. Kind of is what it is. It sucks, but it's only a 1-year deal, so maybe he'll be back. It wasn't a huge contract either, which is kind of strange to me, but it wasn't a monster contract. It's just a 1-year deal. So I think there might be some validity to the fact that he wants to come back to Kansas City at some point. So we'll just have to see what plays out.
Kansas City, Kansas City did sign a big free agent today.
Yes, they did.
James Winchester.
Yeah, that's right.
Back to Kansas City.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, baby.
Look,
that right there says three-peat all over it.
Look, we know Kansas City is not going to be in the market for these big free agents.
No.
They're going to be in that second wave. Kansas City in the next 2 weeks is going to sign a running back, and nobody's going to be, all up and down about it. Kansas City's going to sign the biggest thing that Kansas City's going to do is they're going to sign a running or a wide receiver, right? And the question is what wide receivers are left out there?
There's one right here that I could tell you is really close is Curtis Samuels.
Curtis Samuel. Why don't you sort of take it away and you can go ahead and talk about that.
So right now, Samuels is the number one front runner with the Chiefs. They've actually talked contract with him, with his agent. So I know that he is right there in the the top of the echelon for them. There's been a couple other wide receivers they've been interested in. One of them was a Pittsburgh wide receiver. Pittsburgh decided they didn't want to trade with us, is what it is. I think it's his name, Dante Johnson or something like that. I don't even know who the hell he is, but I don't follow Pittsburgh that much. But anyway, it sounds like, and if you really look at it, I think he's probably the best fit out of all the free agent wide receivers out there. He's probably the best one for all the trade possibilities. He fits well within our system. He's almost perfect for us. A lot of people say he's another Rashee Rice. Okay, it doesn't hurt my feelings. I think he's a little faster than Rashee, but it doesn't hurt my feelings if he's similar to him. I mean, Rashee he had over 1,000 all-purpose yards and had 900. He was 35 yards away from 1,000 yards his rookie season. I don't care if he's like Rashee Rice or not. I think he's a good player. He would, Samuel. He would fit well within our system. Veach knows that. I think he's probably the best prospect for us right now. And money-wise, I think he would be I absolutely agree with that one. I think money-wise, he would fit well with us.
Look, you got to remember that he's good with the system because he played in the system last year.
Yeah, I
right?
understand.
That right there is already a plus. There's going to be less of a learning curve here. He's a younger guy, and I think Curtis Samuel is a guy that has been pushed around a lot, especially since Darnell Mooney signed with the Falcons.
Yeah.
That was a guy that I was on board for. That was another guy that he was with Matt Nagy when he was up in Chicago. When Matt Nagy was up there, he was a 1,000-yard receiver. Well, he went in and signed an average salary of $13 million a year with the Falcons. Curtis Samuel, right? Very similar situation. Now, he didn't have 1,000 yards, but he has in the past. This is a guy that I do think would fit well in the system. I'm still on board with KJ Osborne coming here to Kansas City. And those are the kind of signings that you have to have. I'm not as huge on Tyler Boyd. I know that some people have thrown that around as one of those guys. I think that you need to sign at least one of those kinds of wide receivers, though.
Yeah.
To me, it's not. I'm not huge on I don't know which one it is. I'm not like it has to be this guy. As long as you're not signing, a 30-plus-year-old wide receiver, I just need a guy that's like 600, 650 yards.
Oh, you just set the whole fan base off. It's so funny. I listen to these fans, especially on Twitter, and it's kind of comical. People say, why won't they just give Mahomes a true number one? Why do we need to go out and spend that kind of money? We won a Super Bowl last year with 3 number 4s and a number 2, when you really think about it, and a guy that shouldn't have even been the top wide receiver in the system. Why would we want to go out and spend that kind of money on a wide receiver? We don't need to. We have Mahomes. He's the best quarterback that's ever played the game, period. You don't need to go out and sign every big-name wide receiver because they're in free agency. It just doesn't need to happen. You need to have somebody that's very serviceable, that fits within the system, and can catch a football.
Especially when this wide receiver class is so deep, and we're going to get to one of them in a minute. But this wide receiver class is extremely deep. Yeah. You have Rice, who is only going to get better in this system. You still have Travis Kelce. Don't know if you know that. He's essentially a number 1 receiver. This is the conversation we've had for a couple of years now. And if I go out there and I sign let's just say a 600-yard receiver, right? So you're telling me that I'd have Rice, whatever guy that I sign, whether it be a KJ Osborne, a Curtis Samuel, whatever. Then I have the rookie that I'm drafting. And then you backfill the roster with your Watsons and whatnot, and Travis Kelce. That is a solid receiving room.
Absolutely.
And it will be better than what we had. The biggest problem we had last year was MVS fell off a cliff, and Sky Moore didn't progress at all.
He never climbed the cliff. Sky Moore he was stuck at the bottom of the cliff.
Right. So the solution to that problem is, let's get a guy that replaces the production of MVS, and we improve there, right? We're expecting Rice to improve because he was a rookie last year. But even if he's the same guy, I'm happy with that. And then we're going to draft a receiver who will be better than either a McCole Hardman, Sky Moore type. You've improved your wide receiver room, and I'm happy with that. Those are the
Absolutely.
kind of moves that you have to make when your quarterback is being paid. When you're spending now this much money on a defensive tackle, right? When you're making these moves, you have to sort of trim the fat somewhere. You have to sort of go out there and skim around the edges somewhere. These are the kind of moves that you have to make. You have to sacrifice the fact that Kansas City will not sign a number one wide receiver in free agency. The only way Kansas City is getting a number one wide receiver is through the draft. Trust the process. I know
Absolutely.
it's not as fun. I know, we want to see Kansas City go out there and sign a big name wide receiver. Like I was joking about Michael Pittman Jr., right?
Well, that
I
wasn't a joke,
understand that.
though, Quentin. That wasn't a joke. I mean, people don't realize how close we were actually in trade talks for Michael Pittman Jr.
Oh,
It just didn't work out.
I was totally on board with that.
Yeah.
But the only way Kansas City is going to find their Jamar Chase, their Justin Jefferson is going to be through the draft. That's how they do it, which is why I want them to trade away guys like Sneed. Because the more likely you are, the more assets you get in the draft, the more likely you are to find that number one wide receiver. These are the kind of moves you have to make in order to stay on top, in order to continue to dominate on the offensive side of the ball.
Hey, he said, I think his name, it says Carney, it looks like. He said, we want our Brady Moss combo. Well, I understand that, but how did that work out for Brady and Moss for the time he was there? They did
There
not win
will
a Super
never
Bowl.
be another Randy Moss type the way that happened because he
No.
was traded away for peanuts. That
He
will
was.
never happen again.
Never happened again.
The only way Kansas City will find their Patrick Mahomes Randy Moss combo is through the draft.
Well, not only that, they didn't win a Super Bowl during his tenure with them.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
I mean, one of my point behind that is yeah, you can go out and spend that kind of money or sign somebody like that with that name, but it doesn't necessarily equate to a Super Bowl win.
That's
It
the
just
other
doesn't
thing.
do it.
I don't care what name is on that jersey,
Me
which is
neither.
why I was out on the Odell Beckham stuff all last offseason. I couldn't even be out because I was never close to being in.
Yeah, I give a fuck if Ray Finkel was on the jersey as long as they played well. I don't give a shit.
So, which is why, like when DeAndre Hopkins, I was skeptical about DeAndre Hopkins, being on this team, right? These are the kind of moves that Kansas City has to avoid, right? There's this phrase that you have to avoid the outliers, right?
But they didn't. Yeah.
These Odell Beckham Jr. signings and the DeAndre Hopkins signings, right? Those are outlier situations. You aren't going to get guys like that in free agency and then have them come in and work. You can't depend on those kind of moves to come in and be the guy to take that next step and to be the number one guy on your roster. You can't depend on those kind of moves, which is why when I see the Eagles going out and signing Saquon Barkley, or when I see the Ravens go and sign Derrick Henry, I laugh at those moves because you have bigger needs on your roster and you're going out and spending significant capital on a running back when you have in history been able to find a nobody running back to be able to do the same job. Those are not moves I want Kansas City to make. I want
Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, we've had 3 or 4 Mr. Irrelevants on this team when you really think about it. I mean, going back to Kareem Hunt from Toledo. I mean, honest to God, who would have thought Kareem Hunt would have turned out the way he did? Who would have thought Pacheco would have turned out the way he did? 7th round pick. You don't go. I mean, I like Saquon Barkley. I wish we could have got him 5 years ago, but $38 million, really?
Kansas City is not looking to win the press conference in March.
No.
Kansas City is looking to hoist a trophy in February.
Hey, they've gotten an F with that every year, and every year they get a fucking ring. So, I mean, look, you want to if anybody wants to an A+ or a trophy for the press conferences, that's great, but you got to go be a Ravens fan because that's what they do. I understand, man. I'm not going after you.
Oh no, I'm not. I mean, I enjoy the conversations, but this is why Kansas City is making these kind of moves, right? Or the lack thereof is because you're looking to win championships, not to be able to hoist a jersey, during the big press conference when you're able to, to sign a big name free agent who ends up getting hurt midway through the season.
You put it in perspective. A lot of teams can't do that. Okay, a lot of teams cannot do what we're doing right now, and what we've been able to do over the last 6 years. Really, it's very difficult to find a coaching, just a coaching staff period from head coach down that can cultivate players as well as ours does. That's what's up, Joe. That's extremely difficult to do. It's really hard to do that at any level of football. But the thing, oh, I would have loved Terry McLaurin here. I was beating the table for him when we tried to get him 2 years ago. It just didn't work out. But yeah, a lot of it has to do with the coaching staff, and we have the best. I mean, between Andy and Joe Cullen and Spags, we really can't ask for much more. No other team can say they have this coaching group. They just can't because they don't. Nobody's even close to us. Nobody's close to Andy in this league. Nobody's close to Spags in this league. And really nobody's close to Joe Cullen as a defensive line coach. I mean, he's a defensive coordinator that should be a coordinator, but he's happy where he's at, making that D-line better. You can't really ask for much more. So, yeah, it's a little difficult if you're another football team and you go, well, you know, we want to do what the Chiefs do. Well, you better get better coaches. You better figure out a way of signing our coaching staff, which isn't going to happen because they all just sign contracts, to be able to do what we're doing. So you got to give those guys credit. We can take – I mean, look, it goes back to Chris Conley and Albert Wilson. Look, those guys were nobodies prior to Patrick Mahomes. Then all of a sudden, they all got fat contracts after a year of being with or catching balls from Mahomes. You just can't ask for much more. Right now, and somebody has asked about Hollywood Brown. He's actually still on the table. So if anybody's still wondering, it's still a possibility for Hollywood Brown. Don't think it's not, because it is. He would be a cheaper option, I think, than Curtis Samuel, because really nobody's really went and banged the tables for him. So,
Will asked, do you think that they will sign one wide receiver, or do you think they'll sign
just
two?
one? Just one. I don't think they're going after two.
Yeah, I don't think you need to, because you need 5 or 6 guys. I think Kansas City already has kind of what they need, and I'm expecting them also to draft a guy at 32. So if they're going out and they're signing, whether it's a Curtis Samuel or they're going to go out and they're going to sign a KJ Osborne, one of those guys, then all they need to do is go and invest a draft pick, right? Like that's sort of the move that I'm expecting them to make.
Yeah. It's going to be very difficult for the Chiefs. We're kind of in the same position we've been in for the last 5 years. Nobody really wants to trade with us. So whether it be in the draft, they don't want to help us trade up. They don't want to trade players with us. They just don't want to deal with it. I mean, it just is what it is. You know, Pittsburgh put out the excuse today, well, they don't want to trade within the AFC. Well, weirdly enough, I got a feeling they would probably trade with the Raiders, because the Raiders don't have a shot in hell right now. Look at their quarterback. They just signed. But we do. And people, you know, other teams are sick of us. So whoever we pick up is going to have to be a free agent or somebody that's cut, you know, pre-June 1st or whatever the case may be. That's just how it's going to have to be. Yeah, and we still got Tony Moore and Watson. Actually, Watson took up some cap space this year again. So will the Chiefs re-sign McCall Hardman? Maybe. I think they probably happens, will.
That's going to be a very late signing.
It is. It's going to be late. I think that's going to depend on, you know, a lot of things, mainly who they end up signing. But they're going to wait. That's probably going to be something that happens in like the end of June.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly,
post draft, kind of like what happened last year.
Correct. So with McColl, but they have everybody they need under contract right now, except for one wide receiver, which I think they're going to get.
There's also some intriguing names on the defensive line that are still free agents. Chase Young is still a free agent, which is crazy to me. I thought that he was going to get a contract pretty early. I know that, you know, he's a guy that I think is a solid rotational piece. Look, there's a reason why San Francisco traded for him. I know he's had problems in the past with effort, but he didn't have a problem when he was with San Francisco. That was when he was with Washington. When he got to San Francisco, he was all in. So there are.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, everybody had a problem with effort for the most part.
Exactly. So there are some intriguing guys still in free agency on the defensive line specifically. To me, that's something that Kansas City does need to go after, because they have a ton of free agents on the defensive line. Yeah. Kansas City does need to go after the defensive line. I think they will address some of that in the draft. But when you're talking about Tershawn Wharton, Derek Nottie, Mike Dana, like all of these guys are free agents. Maybe you're able to bring one of them back. I think Mike Dana or Derek Nottie are coming back to Kansas City. One of those two.
Probably Dana. I think it would be Dana over Nottie.
But I don't think that Spot Track Spot Track has Mike Dana getting a 3-year deal worth $50 million. Like,
He hasn't gotten it yet, but yeah,
I
I mean,
know,
he's
but
worth it.
this
If the
is
Chiefs,
the
I'm talking about talent wise, I think Dan is a better player, in my opinion.
those are the kind of guys that you're missing. Really solid rotational pieces that,
Yeah.
on given the right team, can be a full-time starter.
Agreed.
Kansas City needs to replace those snaps, and signing Chris Jones was, I mean, huge. I cannot overstate how important that signing was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric Armstead getting cut by the 49ers, right? If Kansas City can sign those guys, if they're going to sort of roll through that first wave, and all of a sudden, these really talented guys on defensive line or wide receiver, running back, whatever position you want to pick out, they're going to be guys that are going to wake up, in 2 weeks, and they're going to be like, how did I not get signed to this massive deal? It's the world's most expensive game of musical chairs.
It
Okay,
is.
there's only so many spots, and Kansas City is going to pull up with an extra chair, and it may not be made out of gold. Okay,
Well,
but
it
it'll
might be
a
because it
chair.
has a ring connected to it. It's made out of gold.
It'll be there, and Kansas City is going to sign somebody, and you're going to be like, how the hell did they end up in Kansas City? And that's why, because they're going to run out of chairs, and Kansas City will be sitting there with a nice, solid oak chair.
Carney's got a pretty good point here. He said Sport Track had Akunda at 14 a year. You got 5 with Houston. That is true. That happens a lot. A lot of these guys are expecting big money, or they're projected to make big money because they were a great rotational piece, as Dana was, or Nadi for that. Nadi was not as good, I don't think, as Dana, but just as an example, a lot of times they don't get that kind of money. Teams go out and they sign other players. They look to the draft. They say, okay, well, this is a really heavy draft class in that particular position. So they don't put that kind of money into them. I don't know if Dana would pull that kind of money right now. I kind of seriously doubt it. There's not a ton of film on him, but no, he hasn't been signed yet. But there's enough to maybe get him a little bit of money. But again, I don't know, man. We'll have to see how that plays out. There's a lot of players. Some of these players get signed just because they're with us. They played for the Chiefs. That's the reason why they get signed. Some teams are stupid and spend way too much money. Some teams are a little more smarter about it, and they say, okay, wait a minute. We'll sign him if nobody else picks him up. We'll give him an opportunity. And that's kind of how they work it out. We just signed Irv Smith Jr., a tight end that played for Cincinnati last year. Signed him today. Fairly cheap deal, 1-year contract. People are asking why. It's not really because he played for San Francisco or for Cincinnati. We just needed somebody that can come in and be a good rotational piece in case a Noah Gray gets injured or something. That they're not really worried about Kelsey going down. They're more worried about maybe Noah Gray not fitting, working out as well or being injured.
You also have to fill a 53-man roster.
Exactly.
So, you need a third tight end.
And who knows if he's going to be – and honestly, who knows if he'll be here come training camp. By the end of training camp, he may be gone. Who knows? He could be a trade piece later on down the line for somebody that needs a tight end. Maybe somebody goes down for another football team. You end up with something from it. Just is what it is. He may be a practice squad player. We don't know yet.
You need a third tight end. I'm happy about that signing so they can throw away that belldozer crap. Okay? I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want to see a running back or I don't want to see a tight end get under center and try and get half a yard and end up losing.
It worked a couple times, though. I got to give him
I'm over it. Okay?
It did work a couple of times, though.
All the tight ends, the running back room, hell, Andy Reid. Okay? You need to get into the locker room. I need you to get a metal trash can. We're going to rip that page out of the playbook. We're going to put it in there. We're going to have a seance. We're going to catch it on fire. We're all going to just move on with our lives because I don't want to see that crap ever again. I
don't think Andy's going to appreciate what you just said.
You know what? Sometimes you got to hear things that you don't like. Okay? Just the way.
But he's actually won Super Bowls, and you've watched them. So I'm going to go with what he has to say.
You know what? I've watched more Super Bowls than he's been in. So get on my level, Andy.
Well, anyway, he said Smith is there for Blake Bell and not. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. They were okay with Noah last year, but I think they wanted somebody who was a little more versatile too. I agree with you that he's there for Blake. Blake is more of a blocking tight end than he is anything else. Not a great receiving tight end, that's for sure. But I don't know. They're looking for a little bit versatility too, and that's what they're getting.
You need a third tight end. This is a guy that has a history of catching the ball. his best year, he had like 327 yards for the most part. He's been relatively healthy. He missed
Yeah.
some games last year. This is a tight end 3. That's his responsibility. I think he's better than the Belldozer. Not a hater, but a hater.
I don't know
So
if he blocks as well. I mean, Bell blocks really well. I got to give him
so
that. It's all he's
this
good at. But
is those are the kind of moves that you got to make. Like I said,
yeah,
you got to fill a 53-man roster.
absolutely. And you don't know what's coming down the pike later on, so you fill with somebody that may fit, may not fit, a position of need to a degree, and then if somebody else comes along better, you got a trade piece. Doesn't really matter. But anyway, everybody was expecting big splashes again this year in free agency. I know everybody's been upset. No reason to be. We've not done a whole lot every year, and we've done pretty damn well. Uh, the one thing somebody asked me today about Juju Smith-Schuster. Look, he's not in the greatest shape.
I'm out.
Well, it's not that. He's not physically. He's not in the greatest shape right now. His knee. I mean, I saw a picture of his knee that was taken while he was in New England, and it looked like a cantaloupe. I don't know that I've ever seen a knee that swelled up that big. And that was from 3. Now, look, that was from basically 3 games of play. That's really what it was from.
Reports coming out of New England are that his knee may explode.
Yeah. It was. The skin was so thin. I mean, when I saw that picture, I about threw up, and I've seen some shit. Look, I've been in locker rooms and seen some pretty sick shit. That thing in a picture, like, it made me sick. I thought it was fake at first, but it wasn't. It was huge. His skin was so thin that you can see through it. It's just not. Look, I feel bad for the guy. He's 27 years old, and he's not in great shape. So for anybody that's really kind of hoping Juju's coming back, it doesn't look like he's going to, unless something completely changes with his health. He's not going to be back with Kansas City. He may not be back with any team right now. But it sucks, but it is what it is. Moving on, they asked about Hollywood Brown. He's not out of the possibility right now. He's still well within a possibility of signing. But I think I know they're really pushing for Curtis Samuel. And actually, Tyreek Hill, which is kind of comical, Tyreek Hill said he's actually the best fit out of all the wide receivers out there. He's the best fit for Kansas City. And he is. I mean, if you're looking at free agents right now, he's the best fit for us. And I hope they get him done. Now that this money's freed up from Mahomes and, they can make some moves, I think it'll happen. But he said get the guy knee replacement surgery and get him out there. That would make it worse. Once you have knee replacement surgery, you really don't have any agility anymore. But that's comical. I don't know, man. It's going to be it's going to be a lot of fun over the next 2 months. We're going to have a lot of fun on this show, that's for sure. Going through all the scenarios and everybody that's, being cut, maybe traded, who knows? So you're right. I mean, the fact that the Ravens signed Derrick Henry, kind of a large contract, in my opinion, wasn't huge, but I mean, it was enough. It was too much. Look, I'm sorry. He's going to be 31 years old. He did slow down a lot over this last year. I think they did the same thing they did over the last 3 years, and they put all of their money into an aging player that normally doesn't work out that well. It just happens. He's not the answer to get you to a Super Bowl. He's just not. I don't know. A lot of teams are falling apart this year, dude. I don't know if you've noticed, but Cincinnati's got to get rid of a couple players. Looks like T. Higgins is, I don't know if he's still there or not. As of today, I think he was there, but they were looking for a trade partner. Justin Fields is having a really hard time. Right now, it's dwindled down to nothing for trade partners. I think the only person left is the Raiders. And I mean, the Broncos, I'm sorry. I don't know how that's going to work out either. But not too many teams are interested in signing him right now, which I don't know why. I think he's a good player. I think he just got a really bad rap. But with all of these moves that are being made, there's going to be a lot of, and my point behind all of this is there's going to be a lot of players out there that are going to be on the street or looking to be traded from teams. And it's a lot of teams like us are going to have the cream of the crop. We can pick whoever we want. It's okay. We'll take him, and the Diet Coke along with it. It's just going to work out that well. Veach is methodical, man, so everybody's got to be patient with him. He's very methodical when he does these type of things. Every year people get pissed off, and every year since he has a Burrow issue, that's absolutely true. or his throwing wrist is a problem. Yeah, that's for sure. Uh, every year we go through this, and every year I think it's comical to watch everybody flip out over players that are being cut and traded. We don't need all of them. We really don't. We proved that. I think that was a focal point behind this past season of not really signing anyone and still winning a Super Bowl is that we don't have to go out and sign every big name player out there to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
So, who's your draft crush, man?
All right. Yeah, let's get to this. Let's start with a local kid. I say kid, but they're like my age, but I'm gonna keep saying kid. Darius Robinson, Missouri edge defender. This is a guy that really showed up during the Senior Bowl, right? Like he played well all year for the Tigers, but really didn't make his big impact on the draft prospect scale until the Senior Bowl. He had an amazing Senior Bowl, really showed out. This is a guy that earned first team all senior honors, which is crazy because we all know the SEC is the best football conference in the United States out of all of college football. He is a great rip and swipe guy. This is a guy that is able to stay home and is able to play the run, which is something that he is not seen a lot in college football. A lot of times when you've got pure edge defenders, they just go for the quarterback and that's it. Because he's 6'5", he's got long arms. He's able to keep from getting locked up on tackles in college, right? He's able to gain leverage because of his arms. So he's got multiple ways to get after the quarterback, and I think that gives him a great advantage from the start. So I like him. He's got a ton of different moves he can use to get past tackles. So not only is he able to play the run and the pass, but he's able to beat some tackles in multiple ways, and that's huge. So while he still has a ton to learn, Darius Robinson, to me, that's a guy that I think Kansas City could get. Just another piece that you can add to the defensive line. I know Kansas City doesn't necessarily need somebody on the edge. You got to look for more interior players. But if he's sitting there in the second round, man, it'd be hard not to take him.
Yeah, I agree. I have a couple. I'm going to start off, and I'm kind of going with offensive lineman guard. The dude is really good. Out of TCU. So. Yeah, he's out of TCU.
He's like, it's actually bad, but
Brandon Coleman out of TCU. The kid is really good. Got a lot. Big kid, very quick, which is amazing for a 330-pound guy. He's really fast. Very athletic for a lineman. Has extremely long arms, a huge reach. I think he would be a phenomenal fit in any NFL system for that matter. But watch this kid taking on two guys and taking them down. He opens up holes by just being there. Just standing in one spot, he can open up holes. He fights for every inch, and he gives these guys all the time in the world. And that's something that every team wants, is to have somebody that can give you time in the pocket. And he's that guy that can do that. His pressure rate was really low. I think it was like 3.9 or something insane. He had a really low pressure rate. Would be a great fit.
He didn't allow a sack.
He didn't allow a sack
last year. So
did not allow a sack. I mean, he's one of the better players out there. I think he's right now. I think they got him 7th in the league right now as far as guards are concerned. So depending on who you look at, I think he's a little higher than that personally, but is what it is. Who's your next guy?
I just want to add on real quick. I'm on board with drafting a guard. I'm on the Cooper Beebe train, but that's my K-State bias probably. Yeah. But Kansas City doesn't need to go out and get themselves a guard because Joe Thuney his contract's coming up. Kansas City will not be signing Trey Smith if his contract is anything close to what we've seen what other good guards get signed to this offseason. Trey Smith is going to go get a fat contract somewhere else. Plus, Kansas City, you could always use more offensive line depth. So I'm totally on board with spending a draft pick on a guard. it's a big spot to where Kansas City needs to be a year or so ahead when they're drafting
Exactly.
guys. And so
Especially
you're
when
absolutely
you're
right.
cultivating them, you got it in that position with our football team and the quarterback that we have. You need to have these guys on or in the system and let them learn over a year or two, so you can really, they can just it's a plug and play style situation. And I think he would fit that bill for us.
Yeah, it's a great pick. It's a good it's a good one to point out. I just think that it's absolutely a spot where Kansas City needs to look a year in advance on the offensive line, because offensive linemen are a lot like quarterbacks, where their rookie year, it takes them a long time to adjust to the speed of the game.
Yeah,
And if you're able to get them in the system and all they have to do is sit and learn, then whenever they finally do get out there, you're able to really hit the ground running, if it were. So
correct.
yeah, that's a great spot by you. Great, guy to talk about. And if he ends up in Kansas City, I'd be very happy about it.
Yeah.
My pick, I made a promise to you guys, and I'm a man of my word. I said I would bring a wide receiver to the show this time around. It's not a big surprise because a lot of people have been talking about him, so it's not as a hot take or anything like that. But I'm a big A.D. Mitchell fan out of Texas. Look, this is a guy that's 6'4", big guy, crazy speed. Kansas City hasn't had a wide receiver like him in a while. This is a guy that plays with strength, is able to go get the ball. His most impressive stat, though, I don't think, or feature, though, is not necessarily his athleticism. Why you got to be showing the K-State stuff? Come on. Why you do me like that? His most impressive is his route running. He is able to run clean routes over the middle of the field. How many times this year did we see Patrick Mahomes, talking to his guys like, hey, you have to cut the route in. Stop doing this. Stop fading back. Stop running lazy routes. I need you to cut the route in. As you can see from his film, too, that we're showing right now, he does a great job catching the deep ball. This is a guy that's able to track the ball in the air. He's able to break guys deep. I mean, look at the amount of separation he's getting against Alabama, right? Yeah. Like, this is a guy that has been tested. This is a guy that I think that has a great body control when he goes up to get the ball. So he's got a lot of that stuff down already. And when you're putting into a system to where, we're talking about him not being the number one, but possibly being the number 3 guy, so you can limit what he needs to focus on. This is something that Kansas City can really benefit from. And while you're sitting on 32, there's better wide receiver prospects in front of him. So I think there's a real chance that is a guy that could slide to Kansas City. And if he ends up wearing red, rest of the NFL better watch out.
To add to that, he's very versatile. He can play the slot, he can play the outside, and his speed, along with his route running ability, that's why he gets so much separation. And that's what we need. We need another guy that can separate, play any position you put him in, and he's going to win. He's going to beat that corner. He's going to beat that safety. And this kid can do that. He's got phenomenal reach, too. I don't know if you watch any more of his film. His reach is insane. The guy has got a huge jump and huge reach. He's a great 50-50 jump ball guy. That's a great pick. I would love to see him in wearing red. Yeah, him and Rashee Rice would destroy the NFL together.
It would be, obviously there's things that he needs to work on. One of the things that continues to be brought up, there was a press conference or a sideline interview, I can't remember what it was, but he talked about how he doesn't run full effort on every single play. And a lot of people look down on that. But I push back on, what he meant by that. In college football, if you're the 3rd or 4th read on the play, the ball is never going to you. Because the quarterbacks in college football are not taught to go to your 4th read.
No.
They're taught
1 or 2 and that's
it. Yep. So when he's talking about how he doesn't, when he runs the deep ball and he's the 4th read on a play, yeah, of course he's not running full effort down the field. The guy would be gassed before the end of the second quarter. So
who was it that said that? Because I remember somebody saying that about Rashee Rice last year.
Mitchell said it in a interview. He said that he didn't run full speed on every single one of his routes. And
I see what you're saying.
And some people were talking about how that's a bad thing. But I'm just saying that I think what he meant by that is that, hey, look, I'm not sprinting 60 yards down the field when the ball's never coming to me because I'm the 4th read on the play. My job in that situation is to just move the safety over to the other half of the field so we can hit the little flat route, or we can hit the little curl route on the other side of the field. So I don't have as much of a problem with it. To me, this is not an effort thing for me. That has nothing to do with him as a player. I think that's literally him just noticing I can't run 80 yards every single play. Yeah. So if you're concerned about that, if you're you heard that interview, personally, I'm not, because I just think that, not that it was taken out of context, but I think there's just more depth to that conversation than the one snippet that got.
Exactly. And also a lot of times that means, hey, you know what? Sometimes I can overrun the play because my speed is there. I've got, my legs are taking 3 yards at a time. And then you add my speed into that, I can overrun the play really quick. So he said Donovan Mitchell reminds me of George Pickens. Yeah, that's a good comparison. It's weird. I didn't go wide receiver this year just because.
Don't worry.
Or this week, I should say. I should say this week. I didn't go wide receiver because I figured you were going to. I think there was another kid that I liked a lot. Tyler Newby. Or Newbin, I'm sorry. This kid, he's a defensive back. Man, this kid is a beast. I know he's not the biggest guy. Everybody thinks that, you got to weigh 280 pounds. You don't. He is extremely quick, very fast, very athletic, can get anywhere you want him to be in the backfield in no time. I don't know if we have any clips of him right now, but if we do, we should play it because this kid is so fast. He reminds me, watch him jump off the ball. You see his speed is all over the place. He's there all the time. He's quick. He's agile. He just knows how to play the game, and he knows how to read a quarterback. And that's something that we really need in this league, is somebody that can step in right out of college and be able to read the quarterback. And he can do that. Look at this play here. He knew exactly where to be. He read the quarterback. He read the wide receiver, and he stepped in front of the ball, did what he had to do. I would like to have another safety defensive back like him in this league. I think he's quick. He's fast. He's agile, and he reads every play the right way. And in this defense, that's something you really need. He said, I like Newbin. He's my favorite safety in this draft. He's so good. Just an amazing player.
You know what's crazy?
What's that?
His quarterback rating when targeted is 40.2.
I know.
This is a guy that I agree with you. Kansas City needs to. I know they just re-signed Deion Bush today. Kansas City needs another safety on this roster. One, I don't know how much longer Justin Reed's going to be on this team. I think he could play a lot of that Juan Thornhill role, right?
Exactly.
Where he can play a lot of in the zone, but when it's required of him, he can drop down in the box. And I only say that because they already have their box safety with Reed, but he can also do that. Kansas City, and we know that Steve Spagnuolo loves to move his guys all around the field.
He does.
I think this is a guy that, even though he's probably really good in that zone spot, he can also play down in the box.
He can also be a freaking corner, which is a phenomenal trait.
Yeah, his guy. This is a guy that plays really well against the run, against the pass, on press zone. I think that it's another really good pick because once again, Kansas City has to think a year ahead, right? Yep. I'm a big believer in Shamari Connor. I've been on the Shamari Connor train, as soon as he got drafted. But this is a guy that can pick up a lot of that stuff because hypothetically, we're living in a world where Sneed's getting traded, right? Like that in this hypothetical world. So Shamari Connor needs to pick up some of that Sneed role. Well, where did Connor play? Connor played a lot of that nickel safety, extra safety. So now you got to replace that. Well, that'll come from Deion Bush and who? That's where some of these draft picks have to come into play. You're not just going into the draft drafting starters at all 22 positions on offense and defense. You're looking to replace snaps, right? If anybody has seen Moneyball, right, the whole premise of the movie is when you lose a player, you're not looking to replace the player. You're looking to replace the production of a player either in the same way or, in most times, it's a similar way. So when you're looking to replace these players in football, you're looking to replace the snaps and the quality of play you got from that. I think this is a great opportunity for Kansas City to go out, Get a safety like that who can play multiple roles. And let's just see Spagnuolo have some fun.
Exactly.
Let's just see him
Exactly.
have some fun.
He
Guy's a
loves.
crazy athlete.
He is. And the crazy part about him is that he actually gained, I think, 22 pounds from the prior year, because he was a smaller, frame wise, smaller guy. He weighs 210 now, but he was like 188 pounds or 189 pounds. That's insane. And he was still phenomenal the year before. I think this kid has got every bit of the attributes to be a day one starter in the NFL. I haven't seen a downside to him yet, and I watched a ton of film on him. I did not see a downside to this kid. The fact that he is so athletic and can play corner, he could play outside, he could play the slot, strong safety. He could do whatever you want him to do, and that's what we need. And you're right, Spags loves to cultivate these young guys to bring them into a system that's going to accentuate their talents. And that's a kid right there. And honestly, Quentin, I don't think he's going to be more than, if he's a third round pick, that's going to be huge. I think he's going to be in the high threes as far as a pick is concerned. There's no way he's going to go before that.
And I hope people are understanding. This is why I hope they trade Sneed, because in order to get quality players like this, you need to get top 100 picks. You need to get yourself more assets in order to find players like this and move on and get more assets to go out and maybe move up, maybe move back, right? The more lottery tickets you have, the better. And it's not just about, not paying Sneed. It's not just about saving the $20 million by moving off the franchise tag. It's also about making sure that you're able to find sort of that next guy, being able to move in and get your coaches more athletic guys, sort of that next guy. This is why Kansas City needs to look to move off of Sneed. I'm not trying to be a hater about it. I just think that these are the opportunities. You open up more doors whenever you are able to get more draft assets.
And I agree with you. I am not a big proponent, and you know this about me, Quentin. I guess it's the old school in me, because I watched, our team stick with the same guys for a long period, especially the guys that were key role players, key, just key players in this league or within our system that did very well. I'm not a big change guy. If you've got, your key contributors, you should try to hang on to them to keep the continuity there. I think Sneed is one of those guys. I think he fits very well within our system. Everybody loves him. He loves everybody. This team is, a lot of football teams aren't built on continuity. They're built on, let's try to get it done in 1 year. We have done a very good job of putting together a group of guys for 4 or 5 straight years that have grown together, won Super Bowls together, had really bad games together, had really good games together. So sometimes it's really difficult when you see key players walk out the door. But I understand what you're saying. If we were any other football team, and this is what I guess I had to convince myself of this. If we were a different football team with different coaching, then I would say, okay, this sucks. We're getting rid of a great player. We shouldn't do this. We have the coaching staff to be able to cultivate and develop these guys really quick.
Yes.
So it's, as much as I hate to say this, it sucks. If Sneed gets traded, he gets traded. It kind of is what it is. It is going to benefit us in the long run. And it actually pains me a little bit, and I got a cramp from saying that. But it's true. It's going to benefit us in the long run. There's a lot of talent in the draft right now. And that's where we shine, is cultivating young talent. We've done a great, especially on the defense side, but we've done a great job of that. We really haven't had any misses over the last 3 years. We really haven't had a miss.
Yeah.
So
there hasn't been a draft class, and maybe we do this for a show, right? Maybe this is a June kind of show where we go through and we look back at all the drafts and we talk about, because realistically you're not hitting on all of your picks, but it's about, if you failed at a position, how quickly did you either go back and draft that same position next year, or did you fix it in free agency?
correct.
Because that's what being a good GM is about. It's when you fail, how quickly did you pick yourself back up and fix it. But going back to the trading thing, if I'm being honest with you, there are 4 players on this team that I would never see myself trading. 4.
Yeah.
It's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelsey, it's Chris Jones, and it's Harrison Butker. Those
Yeah.
are the 4 players that I don't think are really tradable. But everybody else at some point in their career, I'm not saying tomorrow, right? There are tons more players that I wouldn't trade tomorrow just because I don't think you can replace them anytime soon. But straight up, there are 4 players on this team that I would like to see them play their entire career here because I don't think that you can realistically move on for them and easily find replacements for what they're able to do.
I agree with you. And you know, the other part of that too is that colleges have changed so much over the last 15 years, really 10 years, but they're now cultivating these players in college to be ready for the NFL. Day one starters, ready to play for the most part. They see a position group, let's say it's defensive end, and they see that a certain draft class from 8 years ago is starting to decline, they're starting to fall apart. They start working on those players for the draft. And they build it up because they want their college to be on the board. They want to say, "Oh, well, Frank Clark came from us, Chris Jones came from us." It's so different than it used to be. The NFL is different, so colleges had to adapt, and that's something that every year we have better prospects in certain positions come out than the year before.
Yeah.
Add more athletic players, so it is what it is. Willie Gay, yeah, he signed today. It sucked. It is a 1-year deal. I will say this: I don't know that there's a more athletic linebacker in the league than him, and that it's hard to look and say, okay, this guy is east to west, north and south. He's all over the field. He reads the quarterback very well. He reads the receivers. He reads the running backs. It's just hard to watch somebody, especially that, man, they got him dirt cheap. They got him for next to nothing, dude. I mean, did you see his contract? It kind of pissed me off a little bit.
1-year deal. Yeah. Look, I can talk. Don't worry. We can talk linebackers on Thursday. I've got a linebacker that I'm interested in. And we'll talk about linebackers on Thursday. But let me know if there's in the chat here if there's a position, if there's a draft position that you want me to take a look at. I'll look at any reason to go and watch college football film. I'll take it. So if there's a position that you're like, man, I'm really interested in outside linebacker. I'm really interested in running back. I got a couple of running backs that I think Kansas City should be able to get late in the draft. So yeah, drop them in the chat. I'll come back. I'll look at it, and we'll go position by position. Or if there's a specific player that you want me to look at, I'll go ahead and do that too.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know. You got anything else?
That's it for me.
That's it for me. Hey, we appreciate everybody for joining. If all 850 of you guys will go on to YouTube and like and subscribe, that would be awesome. With that being said, we appreciate everybody for joining, and we'll be back on Thursday to talk more football. And hopefully Quentin will have trimmed his beard a little bit so you can actually see his cute little face. With that being said, we will talk to you guys again on Thursday. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for joining.